Hi, Hannah.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah.
Thank you for your willingness to have this conversation and to share with other people your experience, to be vulnerable and personal with them. I'm always appreciative when anyone is willing to let me ask them these questions. So we'll just go ahead and get started. Okay?
Sounds great. Yeah.
Okay. Because I know normally you're used to asking the questions, so
I am.
It might be a little bit different for you today. Okay, so where were you born, or where did you grow up, for people who don't know you? And I have the convenience of knowing that.
Yeah. So I'm originally from Aurora, Colorado. I was born in Denver, but I grew up mostly in Aurora, Colorado. I spent a lot of time in South Dakota with my grandparents, spent a lot of summers there. But majority of my time was spent in Aurora, Colorado. And I loved the sun. It was so sunny there. You got all seasons. Very dry, though, compared to Oregon here. But yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So is Aurora, I mean, I've heard of it and I feel like I've looked it up, but because I haven't been to Colorado yet, but Aurora is at the northern part of it then, or southern part?
Oof.
Or like eastern,
it's the
western?
opposite. Yeah, it's the opposite. It's eastern. It's more east. It's really close to the airport. So I used to live only 10 minutes away from the airport when we lived there. Yeah, so it's a suburb of Denver. So it's about 10, 15 minutes away from Denver, Colorado.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah, of course.
I have yet to be out to Colorado, but I would really like to go.
Oh, you got to get there.
What is South Dakota like? I'm assuming summers, right?
Yep, lots of summers there. South Dakota is very
Lightning
humid.
bolts?
Yes.
Lightning
Yep.
bolts? Mosquitoes?
Lots of mosquitoes, lots of bugs, lots of ticks. So yeah, I grew up there in the summer. It was always so hot. My grandparents didn't have air conditioning in their place. They were very old school. So it was very warm summers and very cold winters. So we would spend holidays there too. Lots of snow, very flat and prairie-like, which is really beautiful, kind of like rolling hills.
Okay.
It's interesting in comparison to Colorado. I've taken some people there or brought them, and they're like, I'm so surprised that it's so flat and brown.
In South Dakota?
In Colorado.
Oh, yeah.
So when you land into Colorado.
Not every place. It's like Oregon. If you go to Eastern Oregon, it's like a desert.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bend is super, super similar to Colorado.
Yeah.
It gives me a lot of
Colorado vibes. Okay, but if you go even more east than that, it looks like Nevada desert. Yeah.
I remember driving into Oregon when I was moving here, and I was like, why did I move here? I moved here for the green and the trees. Did I just mistake this? Am I ever going to see the trees? And then we eventually got there, but I was very scared at first. I was what did I just do?
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to get closer to Washington.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So then once I got into the Portland metro area, I was like, oh, okay, this is the green.
This is what I was looking for.
This
is what I saw on my Instagram feed. That really got to me. People's pictures of the winter with the mist coming through the trees. I was like, oh my God, that forest. Yeah.
Beautiful. Pulls you right in. And then you don't see the sun for 3 weeks. And then you're like, can I really handle this?
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about Portland weather a couple of times on this podcast, but I feel like we actually have. If you're gonna have a winter, we kind of have it ideal because it doesn't get super cold.
True.
It is. There are dry parts. It's not like Seattle where it's just consistent. Drizzle,
moisture,
and a cloud cover that is if you want to talk about no sun, go live in Seattle. There's a reason why they have lots of suicides. Yeah. But there are parts that dry out here, and true. I feel like it's maybe 3 days rain, 2 days off, or it switches in the winter at least. And then when we get snow, it's not that much. We don't have, I mean, we call it a snowpocalypse sometimes, but that's mostly because people here do not know how to drive in the snow. And we finally just got, since I've lived here, we just finally got snowplows. We used to borrow them from the state of Washington. So yeah, it was a big deal. People really shut down here.
That was the craziest thing for me.
You're like, you guys, you can drive and walk in it. It's okay. You're not going to die.
We're shutting down. We're not going to work.
I don't have to go into work.
It's
People
an inch.
park their cars on the bridges and walk home. And they don't get tickets.
It was wild. No.
You can just leave your car until the snowstorm ends. No joke. Portland.
It's wild.
Portland is funny.
It's the Wild West.
I like it. It. I fit in well here.
Yes.
Yep. No rules.
Yep.
Okay. So all of that in the first question. See, easy.
Yeah.
Name something you cannot live without.
Ooh, such a good question. What can I not live without? Oh my gosh. I'm just going to go with what my first instinct was reality TV. I am such a sucker for reality TV.
What?
No, is that shocking you do?
Maybe because you have such a serious life otherwise.
Yeah.
Okay, I cannot stand reality TV.
I love reality TV.
I figured as much.
Oh, Siri loves it too.
Siri loves it too. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
No way.
Yes.
What do you watch?
Oh my gosh, what do I not watch?
You couldn't live without reality TV?
It's the first thought that came into mind.
It's not like food or...
Right. I was like, water. Well, coffee, but I was like, could I live without it? Maybe. Reality TV,
You couldn't live without it.
Oh,
so what do you love? Okay, so first, what do you love to watch?
Oh.
What's your favorite?
My favorite? Oh, I don't know if I have a favorite, but
okay, give me a couple favorites. So just
90 Day Fiance.
Okay.
Married at First Sight.
Okay. So a lot of things about marriage, apparently.
Yeah.
You got that on the brain.
On the brain. Yes.
And
I'm trying to think of...
You love relationships that we're going to get into.
I love relationships. Yeah. So that's probably why I'm really into... And
you'd like to see how people relate.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And it's such unique.
Do you like shock? Like, is it because of the shock value? Like, you're like, oh my God, did they really just do that on camera?
I think I love I guess sometimes the authenticity of it, right? We can question whether or not some of this reality TV is acting. But I think in some of these moments, it feels as though they're figuring out that process in the moment. And I just really love how people are faced with certain situations and they're problem solving and they're figuring it out, whether it works for them or it doesn't work for them. I was actually thinking about this in the shower this morning. I was like, I feel as though watching reality TV feels like data collection for me. How do people handle different situations?
Look at that. That's nerdy. That is not what I expected out of this question. Okay.
Yeah.
That is, it doesn't surprise me about you, but also that is really cool. I could see that. That's the same reason why I like to people watch, right?
Yes.
Or I'd love like at parties or events, like watching other couples interact or like even just talking to people about their relationships too and seeing how other people do stuff.
I love it. I'm a fiend, probably. Yeah, my partner, now fiance, is just like, can we not watch this? Can we not? And I'm like, oh, but can we? I just need to really see what happens.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good to know. All right. So that's,
So reality TV.
Okay.
I would have never guessed
that, but I love the answer because no one said that so far.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me something unique or interesting about you that only those close to you would know.
Ooh. Getting right in there. I love that. It feels so good to be on the other side. I think that people really close to me know a couple of things. One, that I am not blood related to like my immediate family other than my mom. So my mom is adopted and all of her brothers and sisters are adopted as well. So it creates and offers a lot of rich dynamics and just truly unique processes on how we as a family can come together. So I think that that's always something that people are, I don't know if I would say shocked, but intrigued to hear that about me, and that I also was raised by a single mom. My dad wasn't really a part of my life. And I just, for whatever reason, maybe it was the way that my mom handled it or the way that other people in my life handled it, I was okay with it. Like, I was just like, yep, that's just is what it is. So I think I like to share that just with people close to me because I think it does offer a lot of insights onto why I am the way I am. So
I think it absolutely, from what I know, has helped you, or you definitely, it's part of your experience, like, and who you are.
Yeah.
And I think it also makes you great at what you do.
Right. I would hope so.
Yeah. So what amazing then grandparents, right? So they adopted all these children. What were their motivations behind that? Do you know?
Yeah. So they got married, and they were married for a little while, but then they tried for children, and they struggled. They weren't able to have children naturally. And so my grandpa used to love telling the story about how he went to this like conference, and there was this guy who talked about adoption and about how wonderful adoption was. And my grandpa came home and told my grandma all about it. And they're like, come on, let's try it out. Let's just see. And so they adopted my aunt, and after that one, they went and adopted another 2 and then one more. So they adopted all 4 in like the span of, I think, of like maybe 1 to 2 years. It was a lot. Yeah. All babies,
were they all
too.
Babies?
All babies, yeah. Isn't that wild? They just picked them up from the nunnery.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
4 babies at once.
4 babies at once.
I don't know how people do that.
I think there's like a span a little bit, but
I don't know how people would do that.
Yeah. I don't know how they did it either.
That's pretty amazing. And financially nowadays, I don't know how people would do that, right?
No, yeah. I think things were a lot different then. So my mom was born in 1969, so somewhere around that time frame. So from what they've said about it, it seems really easy it seemed easy to just go up and
just get a baby. Yeah. Just get a baby.
Yeah. Hey, no, why not one more, right?
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. So you grew up in that family. And what was that like for you?
Yeah. So I was the firstborn grandkid. And so I think I have a bit of a different experience from my cousins. But, you know, I was kind of always hanging out with my grandparents mostly, and my mom. We were kind of the unit that hung out quite a bit. And then my aunts and uncles and cousins would come. And, you know, I have a cousin, Logan, who and I were really close growing up, and we felt like very sibling-like.
Sibling-like.
Yeah. We spent summers together at my grandparents' house. And it's interesting because each person has such a different way of approaching things and seeing things. And that's not just my mom or my aunts and uncle. That's like my grandparents and like all of their families. So it was just really interesting to see everyone's approach. But I think it offered such a wealth of knowledge of like everybody's experience and how they each approached being adopted, or if they reached out to their biological family, and what was that like to have their own kids and not have any. So
it was very informative.
Very informative. Yeah. Yeah. Very grateful for all of their experiences and sharing that. Right.
Well, then also your mom was a single mom. And I mean, I know I was married recently, almost divorced, but, you know, I still see myself in a lot of ways as a single mom because he didn't want to be involved, and her biological father didn't want to be involved as well. And so because of that experience, like it makes for a certain type of woman and mother, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, I know this, but are you and your mother close?
Yes, very, very close. And I mean, to a certain degree, we kind of had to be. And not that it didn't happen organically, but we really worked together.
You have to work together.
And formed a partnership.
Yeah.
Right?
You have to work together.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's just the two of you in the world.
Right. Absolutely.
Even if you have involved grandparents that sound like they were saints in some ways because they just, you know, rescued 4 children from...
Yeah,
the nunnery. God. Yes. It just sounds so amazing to me. Okay. Yeah. So, what are you naturally gifted in? Here's a segue.
Asking questions. I feel that
you are very inquisitive.
Questions pop into my head, and I just want to, I'm like, I'm so curious. What do you think about that? And that really comes so naturally to me. that it's sometimes kind of annoying to the people in my life. Specifically now, my partner. Yeah. He's like, can we not have any questions right now? We're in bed. You don't need to ask me these things.
I'm trying to go to sleep.
Yes.
Why do you have so many questions? We're relaxing.
Yes, and that's when all of my questions flow right then and there.
Because when you're still.
Yep.
Yeah, because you're probably busy during the rest of the day. The two of you are very busy.
Yes,
you live very full lives. Okay, what is your favorite thing to do when you are expressing love?
Ooh, my favorite thing to do when expressing love. My immediate thought was like, what do you like? In what way to express love? Like,
that's up to you.
Yeah.
We're finding out about you. I mean,
yeah,
I love writing letters. I'm pretty touchy.
Yeah. I'm a big words of affirmations gal.
We can talk about, love languages if that's an easy way for you to describe, right?
I think
words of affirmation.
Words of affirmation and just communicating like, hey, like I'm so appreciative of you. Thank you so much for all that you do for me, for us, for this world, for your community. I'm really big on wanting to say that to others because I often don't think that we get told that enough. Nonetheless, like as a kid, but as an adult, I just think you never know how much time you have left. So just telling them or how much time they have left, telling them how much they mean to you. And I also do a lot of like acts of service, showing up for people. How can I help you? How can I be of assistance? Make life a little bit easier. I think that's where I show my love the easiest, I would say. Yeah.
That's really sweet.
Yeah.
What was it? Okay, let's see. What did you love doing as a child?
Ooh. It's funny because I was never good at imagination. Like, my mom always would tell me, you have no imagination.
Because you're so literal, do you think?
Maybe.
Analytical?
Maybe.
What does she mean you don't have an imagination? All children have great imagination.
Playing Barbies,
Yeah.
I could never come up with a story. I was like, I don't know. And like, she would be like, so Hannah, like, tell me a story. Like, just make one up. And I'm like, nothing's coming to me. And maybe it was a little bit of, looking back on it even just now, thinking about it, maybe performance of anxiety. Maybe not getting it right. Or not being good enough, and it not being maybe perfect. But I loved playing outside, playing sports, running around. My mom used to make me run to trees and back so
maybe
I could get some energy.
Barbies weren't your thing.
Yeah, I loved them though. It was so interesting.
So maybe like you just like dressing them up. Like I liked dressing them up. My sister used to come up with elaborate things.
Yes.
Yeah. She was all about like, we are playing restaurant in the kitchen and you are the patron and I'm going to cook the meal. And it was, Yeah. She was good at that.
Yeah, I always try to ask my mom, right, to play.
Sounds like she was good at that.
She was, and then she was like, I'm done playing Barbies. Can we like please stop?
I gotta like clean.
Can you do this by yourself? Can you come up with a story, please?
That's why she wanted you to come up with the story. I see what it's about. And you're like, it's no fun to have a story by yourself.
Right.
Barbie's living in her apartment, hanging out by herself. Like, what story is there for a kid?
Yeah.
I get it. That makes perfect sense to me.
Yep.
Yeah.
So playing with my friends outside, playing, just riding our bikes and.
So you're really active.
Very active. Yeah. And
you're still really
social.
active.
I mean, social butterfly.
You are very social too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every report card was like, Hannah talks a lot.
Hannah is friends with all of her neighbors.
Yep. Absolutely.
So like in group projects, you were amazing, I bet.
Maybe a little distracting.
They give me like, they give me hives.
Now they do. I'm like, I don't want to do this.
Because I have to rely on other people and that stresses me out.
Absolutely.
Unless they're super cool. But normally, initially just meeting a group of people and then realizing we have to work together, it kind of freaks me out.
Yep. Agreed. And then once you got past that, then I was like, oh, okay, cool. Let's talk. Like, let's get to know each other. Yeah. Once you get over that initial awkwardness.
Yes.
I was awkward as a kid, so it's
Were
okay.
you? How were you awkward?
Awkward, and I would maybe even say like
socially awkward or physically awkward?
Maybe I would say it's interesting because I would say emotionally awkward. I'll give
me an
example.
Okay.
And maybe awkward's not the right word, but I was a very sensitive kid, very sensitive. And
I do remember that part. Okay.
So, I think when growing up as an only child, I always wanted like a brother or sister or sibling to play with, and just to like do things with and have companionship. I remember asking my mom all the time, can I please, can I have a brother? Can I have a sister? And she's like, maybe whenever I get married, we can talk about that. But as of right now, no.
Is she married? Remind me.
She is, yeah. She got married back in 2015.
Okay.
Yep.
It was a little late.
A little late for
you.
A little late.
Thanks, Mom.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So, so you always want a brother or sister?
Yeah. So I think I really connected with friends. I really had strong emotional ties to them because I really was like seeking that. Yeah. And so I think that complicated things for me because then when they would have other siblings, I would be like, wait, I'm not included in that like family unit, right? Like there is boundaries and lines between family and friends.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I did that differently, but that's interesting that you and I have that in common.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be adopted by other people's families. That was my issue. Yeah. So I understand what you mean. Not the same, but I understand what you mean in the sense of, and I don't think I had any boundaries. That was also the problem. But like I definitely struggled with the fact that I wasn't part of that unit.
Yeah. And, it was my mom and I in our unit. And I was like, if she were
You were recruiting.
I was recruiting. But yeah,
when you grew up, did you want to live in a commune?
I actually want to kind of live in a commune now.
I did too. Well, I kind of created one, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm working on it.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So I think that's where it kind of made me, I just, was an emotional kid and just wanted to connect on deep levels even as a kid. And, usually as kids, you're like, what's your favorite color? Purple. Great. You're not like talking about, necessarily all of those things that maybe I was craving to talk about. And that's what I do now. Yeah.
Did you have significant friends growing up that were like siblings and or you could have those discussions with?
Yeah, I would say so. And again, there's always that thought in my mind that there is limitations, there are boundaries with that. I think it kind of came down to, how maybe I would do anything or be there for them. And they could ask for really, much of anything for me to show up. And I'd be like, yep, I'm there. And I think what kind of occurred sometimes is I would ask for something.
And there would be rely there.
There was hesitation, there was some limits there.
Yeah.
Of like, actually, I can't meet you there. I can't do that for you.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. So this is different. Right. I'm approaching it as like a very familial tie, and you have a really strict boundary of this being a friendship tie. And so there were limitations on what they would or wouldn't do for, to show up for me or be there for me.
I still run into that.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
But it was such a reality check, right? Of like, hold on, wait, why? But I had to really kind of reframe it of like, they have a different experience of family that I still tell people to this day, I'm like, I don't necessarily completely understand sibling relationships. I really try to, especially in my work, but intimately with the people close with me, like when they're talking about their sibling relationships, I'm like,
yeah, I can't relate.
Can't relate. Don't really know what to do with that because I've generated my own rules from my own experiences about friends and family and what I can depend on others for.
What about your self-confidence, like in the sense that really seems like you got a lesson much earlier than I did, for instance, on like, I am loved and lovable even when somebody has a boundary here, or their opinion of me or their relationship to me is different than maybe vice versa, right?
Right. It's interesting because it actually, I think, kind of hit my self-confidence.
Did it?
I kind of thought, I'm not enough. I need to do more for others.
Okay.
I'm not doing enough. I definitely need to show up more. I need to be a better friend so that it can, so that I can receive in whatever way that is. So I think that since growing up, I've been really reflective of kind of like, hold on, let's take a look about how much I'm offering here. And why? Is it because I feel like I'm working to like earn my friendship or earn the reciprocal effort?
Yes.
And that's only been a lesson I've learned.
I was going to say, when did you learn this?
In the last 5-6 years.
Okay, you're younger than me. You learned it a lot earlier than I did.
I wish it would have been earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I wish it would have been earlier too. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That's a hard lesson.
Well, and especially being an only child, and I think that felt even more isolating. Okay, so that's not enough. And so then what is a good friend?
Yeah.
And what is enough as a friend and what's not enough? Because I had a different view than other people who had sibling relationships.
And their life was already full.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah. And they weren't looking for that. Yep.
Nope. So, yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting. Okay. We're getting some good stuff here. So, what is one of your earliest memories of feeling love?
Ooh, feeling love. I mean, my mom always did a kick-ass job at celebrating me and making sure I felt like a number one priority for her. So she would always show up to my sporting events. Like, I remember playing basketball, like when I was in elementary school, when it was really terrible. And, like, no one needs to watch that. And she would show up. Like, she would be working such long hours and be working hard so that we could make ends meet. And she would still show up. She would get her shift covered, or she would leave early and then work earlier the next day, or whatever that may be. I don't know exactly how that all came into fruition, but she was always there. Always there. She would, like, throw me elaborate birthday parties that made me feel so special and so thought of, and so loved. So, I mean, really since kind of day one, she's made me, I'm like tearing up about it. She's made
your
me her
advocate.
Absolutely.
She's cheered you on.
Yeah. She's my number one fan.
She is.
Yes.
Well, that's, I hope that every mother feels that way.
Right.
That's not everyone's experience, certainly. But
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, isn't that the goal of motherhood? How has that informed your, how do I articulate this? How has that informed your want to be a mother yourself? Not want, but you know what I mean. Yeah. How has that informed you to look at motherhood?
Yeah. I think, and even in the work that I do as being a therapist, right?
Like, you feel like everyone's mother?
No, but I do hear their stories where
you're like, no, I have good boundary.
Where people have either mentioned where their parent wasn't able to show up or their guardian wasn't able to show up, and the times that they did, like how meaningful that was to them. And so I think that's informed me about like, like showing up is a pretty big factor here. And I want to make sure that I'm in a place, or that's my number one goal, is to always show up and be in support of whatever my kid wants to do. And I've always, I guess never thought of like, I don't think I'll have kids. I've always kind of had the idea of having kids.
Yeah. As far back as you can remember.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever thought about not having kids. Yeah. Kind of always daydreamed about, the house and the way I pick a fence and family. Yeah. Yeah.
You've been trying to create you've been trying to create a family since you were young. Yeah. Your own family. Whatever version of that was for you, right?
Yep. Yeah.
You inspired maybe by your grandparents.
Yes.
And you do intend on having a family.
Yes, I do. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're excited about that.
Very excited. Yeah, I hope to maybe get it. I've told you before, I want to get him all done at the same shot, I'm sure.
And the joke is how many? 3?
3 all at once.
So triplets.
Just
get it done. One and done. Yeah. Just diapers all at the same time, formula if you need it.
Absolutely.
Just get it done.
And then
be done.
And then get back into your normal sleep routine after that is.
And workout and life.
And body.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, either 2 or 3. That would be awesome. But I will take whatever comes my way. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm excited for that for you.
Yeah.
It's a really, really amazing and beautiful experience. Mm-hmm. It is life transformative. It is some of the hardest work you'll ever do, especially when your child is looking at you and reflecting back all of the things that either you did right or did wrong.
Oh, yeah, right?
And it's like a constant mirror if you're paying attention.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
A talking mirror.
A talking mirror.
And you're doing a good job, you hear about that. When you're doing a bad job, you also hear about that.
Constant feedback.
They're like, no, you haven't gotten it right yet. So keep going, Mom.
Keep going. At least there's support there.
It depends on your relationship, for sure.
Absolutely.
And how you cultivate that as a parent. But I think you're going to be amazing at it. So
thank you.
You're welcome. I'm excited to see that for you. Tell me a childhood memory that you've never shared with anyone.
Never.
Okay, well, how about shared with few?
Well, one that is kind of close to my heart that I think kind of speaks again to a little bit of the emotional side of me that is slightly, I don't know if I want to say the word embarrassing, but it is not necessarily one that puts me like, I would maybe say in the best light that people are maybe like, that's an interesting memory. So there is this one time there was an ice cream truck that was coming down our street. Me, I think, and a friend were riding our bikes, and I told my mom, I said, Mom, there's an ice cream truck. Like, she's like, well, go grab your own money and like go buy it. And I was like, ooh, like I really was kind of like a hoarder with money. Like I was like, I don't want to let this go. But I was like, oh, but I really want this ice cream. So I took, I think, $1. And I went and bought ice cream. And then I got the ice cream and I have it in my hand. And I'm like, what did I just do? Why did I just spend this hard-earned money and on this ice cream, like this need for naught thing? And I ran home crying.
How very practical of you. How old were you?
I think I was maybe under 10 or a little over 10.
Okay.
I was younger.
Very conscientious of you. Wait, are you a Taurus?
I'm a Libra.
Okay.
Balance.
Yeah,
right?
It's all about balance. Okay.
Went home, started crying to my mom. She was so concerned. She was like, why are you crying about this? And I was like, well, now my $1 is gone. Like, I don't have that $1 anymore. She's like, well, go ask for it back. Give back the ice cream if you really want this $1. Well, then I got the ice cream back, or the $1 back, and it wasn't the same $1. And I was like, oh my God. Like, I felt like I had just, abandoned a friend. Isn't that odd and so peculiar?
You had such an interesting relationship to money.
And it was really I would say, like, inanimate objects. Like, I had a bunch of stuffed animals and things of that nature, but I really hesitated on letting those things go. So stuffed
you saw
animals.
The value of things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And probably because your mom worked so hard for everything.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So my mom put me into therapy after that. She's like, "This is peculiar.
This is too much.
This is peculiar. We need to figure out what's happening here."
Wow. Yeah. So what is your relationship to money like now?
Whew. Yeah. It's interesting because I still feel the same way in regards to cash specifically. So like in this new age of like cards and like money but when I was growing up, that wasn't really a thing.
No.
It was just cash and like checks and things of that nature. So whenever
Who uses a check anymore? Yeah, I know.
So whenever I do get cash, I hoard it. Like I have a real aversion to spending it. But if it's like on a card or something, like it feels so different to me. But I still am very much wanting to be, frugal and be smart and save and think about the future of where I want to be and how, my spending habits today impact those things too. But yeah, it's such a weird relationship with cash specifically.
Yeah, very specific to the actual paper dollar.
Mm-hmm. I think it's because it's tangible.
It's like your friend.
Yeah. I don't necessarily, let me just be clear. I don't necessarily feel like super like that to things now. I'm not sure why, but
there's nothing wrong with being friends with money.
That's true. Absolutely.
Because
and not being afraid of it.
Oftentimes vilify it or like make it the root cause of our issues or blame it. And it's like, it is just a piece of paper.
Right.
It's what it means to you, right? Yep. Or what it took to create that or
the effort made there, right? And just also, it was taught to me very young, save your money on something that you really want, right? Like just be very conscious of that. So then it was like spending money on a piece, on an ice cream cone was so absurd. And like I felt like I had done something wrong. And then I lost my friend, right?
But do you love ice cream? That's what I need to know.
I do love ice cream.
So it might have been worth it.
Yeah, that was rough. I remember when I had first met Cameron.
Choice. I understand.
I was like, I'm not good at sharing. One, I'm an only child. So
Cameron is your fiance.
Oh, yes. Cameron is my fiance. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And when I first met him, I said, I have a specific ice cream that
you don't share.
I don't share.
That seems so unlike you after all of these things that we've heard about you. Okay, so tell me about this. Why don't you, is it just ice cream? Or are you that way with certain things in your life too?
I would say I'm with that with certain things in my life. I've recently actually kind of discovered that it may be like a scarcity mindset. Like, when am I going to get this more again? Yeah. Yeah. And will I have enough to budget me throughout the week? So when I get these little ice cream sandwiches and I have enough to get me through the week until the next grocery store trip. And my partner Cameron will say can I have one? And my immediate reaction is to tense up and be like,
no, because then it'll knock off the balance of how many I get.
Yes, exactly.
I've already planned this out.
Yes.
And prepared for it. Budgeted for it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Yeah, it just knocks you all off balance.
Off kilter.
He absolutely knocks you off balance.
To say the least.
In more than one way.
I've gotten a lot better about sharing.
Yeah.
And not believing that it's super scarce to me. So
it's almost as if you were born to a child of somebody during the war, right?
Yeah, really.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
In some ways.
And I mean, with my mom being a single mom.
That makes a lot of sense.
There were tight times.
Yes.
They just were.
Yes.
And there were times, when I knew that it was going to be a struggle to get XYZ.
Yeah.
And so I really was intentional about that. Yeah. And yeah. So it definitely has had an impact on me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have had to change that money story, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
As an adult. Yeah.
That's also been hard. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So your partner has probably helped influence that because he had different upbringing, right?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. He introduced a budget.
Budgets are good.
Budgets are good. Yeah. So he's really alleviated or helped me see kind of the different side of this scarcity and not necessarily believing it as that, but working hard and allocating these funds and having that respect for that money even further, so that it's not in this fearful state, but in a more respectful state of the funds that we've earned. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And saving for the future that you want to create together.
Yep, exactly.
Really cute. You guys are really cute, by the way.
Thank you.
Adorable. Salsa dancing, adorable.
Oh, yeah.
And horseback riding. What are you guys, the model couple? What is going on? Oh. So cute. Okay, let's see. Oh. What has been your greatest lesson in love?
Ooh, in love. My greatest lesson.
Yeah, there's a theme here.
I would think so. My greatest lesson in love. God, I just feel like there's so many when even thinking about this.
Okay, so give us one. What's the first thing that comes to mind? Anything.
I think that love evolves. The love, because I really think, even about the relationship that I have had with my mom and the love that we've had, it was very much, she was taking care of me and I loved her for that. And I loved, the support and taking care of me, right? Like she was my provider. And now I love her because of also who she is, right? And like there's all these additional things. Yes.
And expands. It's expansive.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that what your idea of love can also evolve based on all of these different experiences. Like I think about probably like my first love ever and I'm like, whoa, how I thought about love then was way different about how I think about it now, and just all of the components that go into it. I think it's like an ever-growing, maybe improving, but just like really growing and budding idea that always is changing based on all of the experiences, right? You can also have some bad experiences that have influenced the way I love.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm thinking my mom, I think, has been, obviously kind of one of like my very first loves, right? She's one that taught me about love and family relationships about love and her own, romantic relationships and how she loves others. And I think that it's such a dynamic thing, love. I guess is my thought. I don't know if I answered your question.
You did. You did a great job.
Okay.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then what is one lesson in love and relationships you wish you would have learned earlier?
Ooh. I think this kind of goes back to the when in friend relationships and how I was thinking of, I need to do more to be loved by them. And to almost, unconditional to a degree. So I think...
Did you learn unconditional love in your family?
From
all of those adoptive relationships? It seems
I would say to a degree. To a degree, right? I think that there's their own experiences that have happened there where there may have been conditions, right?
Sure.
And I think that that's just been evolving with the times.
I think that's also normal in relationships.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes, yeah.
There are some conditions, right?
Yeah.
And so I think what I wish I would have learned earlier is that I can be loved just as I am right now. Mm-hmm. I don't need to do anything. I don't need to say anything. And this is specifically also in romantic relationships, but really owning that.
Just be me.
I'm just me.
I can just be me.
Yeah. I don't have to go perform, go above and beyond.
Be perfect.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. And own that stuff.
And maybe I'm judging myself more than other people are judging me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's self-love.
Mm-hmm.
I wish that I would have kind of offered that to myself rather than almost seeking it from others.
When did you learn how to do that?
Yesterday?
Yeah, I'm still learning it.
I think it's an everyday practice.
It is. You get better at it every single day.
I really think that back in, I actually kind of have a very specific time, which is so interesting. Back in 2021, I really did a deep dive.
2021 was a big year for you.
Big year.
Yeah. How old were you? Were you in your Saturn? I think you were in your Saturn return.
I think I was either 20. I think I was either 28 or 27.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. You were. You were stepping in right into that.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think I'm not an astrologer. I'm almost positive it's Saturn return. But either way, yeah.
That sounds important.
So it happens again. It comes back around later in life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I had gotten out of a pretty serious relationship and pretty devastatingly. And I was out there dating willy-nilly, being yeah, whatever you want. Yeah, I'm casual, even though I really wanted a relationship.
But you're just afraid to ask for it.
I was so afraid to ask for it.
Yeah.
That would be too much, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm not ready yet.
Where'd you get the lesson of being too much, out of curiosity? What do you think that was about?
I'm a pretty loud person. I think you and I That's not unbeknownst to us.
No.
And so I think
that I can be loud.
Well, yeah, that we're
I
just
have a very loud laugh. Yes.
Loud laugh and, just high energy. And I think there were times when that was too much for others. And so I think that's where it kind of really came from. And then, being told I talk too much or, and again, going back to those dynamics of friends, like I'm stepping over boundaries of like what would be a family thing to do.
It's too much for us. Why are you coming on so strong? Back up, lady.
Yeah. Oh, I'm intimidating to other people, and that's XYZ why don't have certain relationships. And okay,
yeah, they weren't your people. Is all
not my people.
No.
So yeah, I really had to come into my own after like having those series of dating relationships of number one, failing, and rightfully so because I wasn't saying what I wanted.
But you were also failing with people that weren't for you anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
Because they certainly can't be for you if you're not being authentic about who you are.
Right. They don't even know who I am.
You just go through this honeymoon period and then all of a sudden they're like, wait, who's this girl?
Yes. And so I took a break after that and I really got serious. I was like, Hannah, you need to figure out what the hell you want and what it is that you're looking for in a relationship and own that. So then
Were you going to therapy at this time?
I was, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Therapy is good for people.
Yes, please go.
Especially if you don't know what is up.
Right, right.
Sometimes we need a little tune-up. Sometimes it's good to have somebody else reflect some stuff that other people have maybe been pointing out to us, but we just didn't want to learn it yet.
Or people who haven't said it yet because they're too scared to say it. Yeah. Yep. So I really got serious about it and decided, I think we shared before that, I need someone who is able to sleep with a sound machine. And that's not too much to ask. Like, I just need that. And I want to be upfront about that.
Me too.
Right?
Sound machines are amazing. What is wrong with that?
Sleep is so important. If you haven't gotten that quite yet from me, I value sleep. Yeah, absolutely.
Me too.
And so not being afraid to ask what I want, but that had to come with loving myself first and identifying that was okay to want. And that was work. And that's still, an ever evolving and learning experience for myself is even in a relationship, even being engaged. Okay, well, what do I want and how do I not lose sight of that when linking and connecting with somebody? And because, I have people-pleasing tendencies, how do I not try to like over-please them and then lose sight of myself? Which I think is just a daily practice. There is no arrival. Like I tell patients all the time.
And I think also, if we get into the psychological component, right? You and I have talked about this off camera. Having a dad that isn't present, right? As a female, there's a huge void there, especially with all the self-love, self-worth, self-confidence, all those self-respect.
Oh, yeah.
That was a big one for me. Having a worthiness wound, right?
Yeah.
Or even an abandonment wound, right? Because you never, like, I can't relate to, I can relate logically, but I can't relate emotionally to never having a dad present, right? Right. I had a dad, but he was physically not present and emotionally not present. So that I can, understand how that void of that presence, right?
Right.
And so I think that is really informative, especially when a woman's going through her teenage years, when she's developing a sense of self. And then you're consistently searching outside of you to help fill that void, right? Until you realize it or someone points it out to you. A kind therapist.
Yes.
It's like, honey.
We need to look at that a little bit deeper.
You need to stop chasing these men, right? That don't want you.
Yeah.
Did you have that issue too?
Well, I think it was a weird...
I speak for myself there.
Like a weird, what's the word I want to look for? Entanglement. I think it was really hard for me to see this piece of that because I had always known that my dad had never once, number one, met me. And so to me in my like rational brain, it was like, well, how can he judge me for who I am if he doesn't even know me? So like that was like my story for a long time. I was like, it doesn't really bother me because he doesn't know me. And so I don't really care really what he thinks because he like saw me as a like maybe as an infant. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think so. And so, but then it came another time in the last probably 5 years where I had to accept the fact that at its base, there was an abandonment.
Yeah.
There was. And I can't deny that.
Yeah.
There was an abandonment. And although,
he wasn't there, he chose not to be there.
He chose not to be there.
Yeah.
And that is an abandonment of me, regardless if he knew of me or not, or knew who I was or what I was about.
Right.
And so I had to really accept that. And I think it was only until, recently that I was like, oh, maybe that's a piece. I don't know if it's the whole pie, but I definitely think it was a piece of why I kind of maybe, chased after a variety of people, just not after romantic relationships. But
even friendships.
Even friendships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I was very grateful. I did have my grandfather, who was a pretty big influence of like a male figure in my life.
That's amazing.
Everyone has their flaws, but I think he really stepped in. And now I have my stepdad, who is also just so wonderful. And it's just like there have been so many good experiences I have
with men.
That's
amazing.
That I'm very grateful for, that not everyone
No.
gets that opportunity to have such. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm doing some thoughts on my own. Yeah, because I knew what you meant by that. Okay, so back to you.
Yes.
What makes you feel loved?
Ooh. What makes me feel loved? And again, it kind of goes back to people showing up. That is crucial. So crucial for me as someone who's able to show up even when it's inconvenient for them. Whew. That is just...
That's big.
That is big, big, big. And I think that's a very big way, a big micro way of someone showing me feel love. But I think someone who can take the time to listen to me, to understand like the way that my brain works. Oh my goodness, like that hits one of my buttons. Absolutely. Like someone who can really like take a curiosity and an interest on how I function and how I see the world. Oof. That is love.
That's good stuff.
That is the drug, right? Yeah.
Yeah, when anyone takes the time to understand us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, absolutely. Mm-hmm. So I think that is a big key.
Our children, right? Our inner child just really wants to be seen and heard.
Yeah, absolutely. Things I talk about with patients all the time.
Yep.
Yeah, therapists aren't immune. They're not immune, right?
Oh, no, we're human.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We don't got our shit figured out.
Oh, hell
not all
no.
of us.
I was just yelling at the girl in my classroom yesterday. She's 31. And I was like, hey, she goes, you do not look 50, which is everyone's response, right? And I go, thank you. And I just want to let you know that I remember what it was like to be 31. And I remember how old this used to look like. And I just want to give you a picture of your future right now. So when you turn 50, you are going to be like, I am not that old. And I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. And no one has it figured out. I thought my parents had it all figured out by the time. No, they were winging it too.
Oh, yeah. Everyone's just trying to do their best.
Every single day. And some people do a lot better than others. But for the most part, we're just all trying to figure it out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Is that like the biggest thing you've learned in counseling people?
Ooh, is that people are just trying to figure it out? Yeah.
To their best?
To their best abilities. I think that's the message that I like to preach. That's the message I often like to offer to people is that you're doing your best, right? We're a pretty critical society, and our culture as Americans is just very critical. Did you do this right? Is it perfect? Are you going to be ostracized for this? And I really want to offer that to myself and other people in my life that you're doing your best.
Which is really compassionate.
Yeah.
It's back to that self-love.
We don't have any compassion for ourselves.
No, or for other people.
No.
We're like, you cut me off. Right?
Yep. But then with a friend, you're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, can I be there for you? You did your best. Don't worry about it. But we have such a difficult time giving that back to ourselves.
Then we're like, oh my God, why did you do that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Self-compassion.
It is important.
It's very important. Yeah.
Okay, so you're just spreading compassion and love and joy to everyone. I see.
Yes.
That's why we like each other. Okay, let's see. What is your favorite thing to do when you're expressing love?
I love watching people's reactions to the love. Again, it kind of goes back to that reality TV bit, right? Of how are you digesting the love that I'm giving you? Is it right? Is it hitting the spot? Does it feel good?
You love studying people.
I love studying people.
You do.
I got into the right field.
At research. You'd be really good at research.
Yeah, I think
and
if I
data collection.
Yeah.
I feel like you need to do some studies, some important studies. Am I going to see your name on some studies?
I did do a study. Did you ever know that? I did research. Yeah, they did it in school. Way back in my undergrad. Yeah.
No, you didn't.
Yeah.
So your name is on a study. How cool are you?
Yeah. Me and some classmates, we did a study on friends with benefits relationships. I'm trying to think exactly like what the prompt was, but I think it was about like the satisfaction in them. Like, are people actually really satisfied in these friends with benefits relationships? Or are they actually just not as satisfied as they are alluding to be? Because again, it's that like, this is how I'm going to get connection. It may not be what I'm exactly looking for, but I get something. So yeah, I did a study on that, and I even presented it.
What were your findings?
That people, I think, I'm sorry if I'm getting this incorrect, but I think that it was that they weren't as satisfying to individuals. And again, we did this.
There's no intimacy.
There's no intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
None.
It's a situationship. That's what we're calling it now.
I know. It's so
There's a thing for it. Yeah, situationship. And so, there's not a lot of intimacy there. And how close are you getting, right? And so I think with the generation below you, they're getting a big dose of that, right? Well, a lot more freedom.
A lot more freedom.
Less people getting married. Nobody's getting married anymore. That's fascinating to me. It's like a real statistic.
Yes.
I know.
Isn't that wild?
It is. It's like my generation really fucked shit up because we were like, oh, yes, we do get divorces. We do. And then your generation just took it to a whole other.
Yeah. And I think that
you're like, I don't like you anymore. Bye.
I'm leaving. Thank you for your time.
And we're going to communicate about this effectively.
Yes, absolutely. I think that there's also been this transition of what intimacy looks like and what it really is and what people like to advertise it as. Because
tell us more.
Oftentimes people are, well, I'm being intimate with them, right? Like I'm doing this very intimate thing of being, or, having a sexual relationship with somebody. Yes. And what are the parts of you that you aren't showing with this person?
Well, you don't have to share very much.
You don't.
It's almost like if you have a long distance relationship, it's the exact same thing. You're like on vacation constantly.
Right.
You're like, I have dropped everything for this date.
Absolutely.
I'm going to see you tonight. And I've had time to get my nails done. Like my hair is perfect. I've had time to work out today. I prepped this in my calendar. Or maybe, you just swing by at 10 o'clock at night. I don't know what your thing is. But my point is like, you are only seeing one side of that person. And it doesn't show them when they're stressed or they don't have enough money in their checking account or something bad happens to a friend or a family member or
100%. Yeah. And I think, there's been such a, what's the word? Like an evolution of sexual relationships and sex positivity that there's this big wave of people who are like, I'm like, no slut shaming here, right? Like sex is good for all individuals. And so there's that confidence that comes with that of like, yeah, we can have sex, right? Like it's not as what I would maybe see as intimate as it once was. And now the true intimacy is, what are the things that you're not sharing with other people, right? What are you talking about? Because if you're not talking about kind of like the stuff we're talking about here, I'm going to maybe challenge that on if that's actually intimacy. Is that actually being vulnerable? Is that actually being intimate in closeness, right?
Well, and then we all have different definitions of that, even based upon our attachment styles, right? If I'm a fearful avoidant, it's going to be, I'm maybe not going to want to share a lot of things with you, but I'm going to feel like I am because every single exposure of any part of me is going to feel like I'm feeling vulnerable with you. Right? And an anxious person is like, I need to share everything with you. You know it all within the first 2 hours of meeting me. Hi, how can you handle that?
Yeah. And I think there needs to be like a little bit of, that delineation of physical intimacy, because I can stand by that, absolutely. But emotional, we can't like say just intimacy. Do you think that men are much better, though, at the physical intimacy and not having the emotional intimacy than did your findings? My personal findings or my research?
I mean, I can speak for my own personal findings, but yeah.
Yeah, I can't really recall on what my research had said in regards to male and female and the distinction. But, my gut instinct says that I would say that both male and female identify with struggling with the emotional intimacy and really, having great strides in the physical intimacy because there's a lot of confidence there. And since there's been that delineation of physical and emotional, I don't have to go and talk about this emotional stuff. I can just be here in the physical and that's okay. And I feel safe there to talk about that.
Well, and it's also becoming a culture of what works for you.
Yeah.
People are redefining what relationship is.
Absolutely.
Too.
Yeah,
because the relationships of my parents, boomers generation, is kind of a bygone era at this point.
Yep.
I mean, few and far between. Let's say you and Cam. I bet that you and Cam talk about like spending the rest of your lives together. But like, and there's room for that, but then there's also room for this friends with benefits, right? Or being poly or having an open relationship, or like
non-ethical non-monogamy, right? Or ethical non-monogamy.
Ethical non-monogamy. I'm just gonna slow it down. We were all trying to say non-maleficence the other day. People were cracking me up. Yeah,
there's room for all of that. It's really, though, again, kind of going back to that self-love. What do you want?
And then can you be really clear about that, articulate that, be vulnerable enough and secure enough to share that in your relationship and show up for that and ask for that? So these are all things that you learned in the last 5 years. Good for you. That's why you're engaged. Right?
Yeah.
You also made a clear, sorry, I'm getting more comfortable, but in a really awkward dress. You also were really clear with the universe, right? And I think that things can't show up in your life if you don't know what it is that you're asking for. Like you can consistently be like, well, I really want a partner, but that's not very specific. Nor is it even taking steps. So you took some pretty great steps. We can talk about those steps to everyone. Because, we're going to talk about this too. That's like in a question or so. But you really want to study relationships. So you work as a counselor. Here, we'll just jump right into that.
Jump right in.
Okay. Recently, you have graduated with an MA in professional mental health counseling from Lewis and Clark College. Good for you.
Thank you.
And you are a qualified mental health professional of the state of Oregon. And you also just passed your licensure exam. So right now you're in supervision for your 1,900 clinical hours. And you're going to become a licensed professional counselor.
Bingo.
But you also got into counseling specifically because you have a love of relationships. Do you want to tell us more about how your counseling practices going to evolve over time and what you're really after?
Yeah.
What you're trying to create in the world?
So I initially was wanting to be a counselor. I was like, I'm going to be a sex therapist. Like, wow, how vulnerable and what a needed thing to talk about and create a space to talk about. And then, as you said, I went into Lewis and Clark College and went individual so that I could maybe see if this was really what I was about. But just in my own experience with relationships and then seeing other people's relationships, I'm like, I know
this is my thing.
This is my thing, and this is what I'm so passionate about. So eventually I want to become more a couples therapist and get training and specification on that, and really helping both couples and individuals identify for themselves what it is they want. How much self-love do they have, and how to communicate that to others. And even in my own counseling work now that I do with individuals is really just being clear. What the heck do you want? Right?
And why aren't you telling them that?
It's a scary thing. There's that rejection.
Totally.
So I think that there's so many...
Or whatever beliefs you have about that person's intake of that information.
Right.
Or,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or what the repercussions might be, even though there might not be any repercussions. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. But, in regards to relationships, we often talk about that as like either romantic, platonic, but really we have relationships with everything. Mm-hmm. Everything. Mm-hmm. So it's really like breaking down these barriers on how we see relationships and really looking at them on how am I relating to so many different things in my life? How am I relating to the work that I do? How am I relating to the way that I'm living my life? What's my relationship with myself? So I'm very relational. If that wasn't clear already.
Yeah. You answered the question.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to what you do right now.
Yes.
What have been your greatest lessons in working with adults in this capacity? What have you learned the most?
How do I want to articulate this? Man, that our ability to endure is great. That our ability to learn and grow is also great. That there are those options, and people who feel like there can't be any changes, that there are. They're just not these like big aha moments where your life just like automatically changes. They're just so miniature. They're like miniature, like little miniature kisses that they give you. But yeah, one's capacity to change something that has been instilled in them for so many years, and to have the courage to continue to work against that original programming, like it is truly amazing. Truly, truly amazing. So I've really loved that. And, I tell this to my patients all the time about it is such an honor to be a witness to someone else's, not only their story, but how they work within that story, how they feel about that story, what they want to change about that story, what they want to keep. It is, something nonetheless magical. Absolutely.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's what I love about it.
Mm-hmm.
I love helping other people see their story and then where they want to pivot or make little, improvements. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Little miniature kisses.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's such a good visual. I just see them falling from the sky and landing on your skin or something. That's really cute. Is this experience still leading you to a career of being a sex therapist?
Yeah, I would say so. I think it's definitely something that I want to add to like my repertoire, because I think that sex is just such an important aspect and component to specifically romantic relationships.
Does it come up a lot with the people that you work with?
It's interesting because, it feels like it does for most people to talk about sex. It feels odd. So when I'm bringing it up, it feels like, oh, hold on, why are we talking about that? So it's difficult for individuals to kind of bring that up into the space because it doesn't feel like you should. And I really want to work on like helping people talk about it way more. And I think that is happening, right?
Yes.
I can't not discredit people that it is happening.
Yes.
And what they want and desire, but how that then shows up and how that's been formed with your own experiences and how that continues to be formed and what you want and you know, for the rest of your life. Yeah. So I think it is.
And you're starting to kind of cultivate. So back to what you were doing, you know, 3 years ago, you're kind of cultivating a list of even questions for interviewing on dates and So do you also assist your clients with some of these questions? Like, for instance, if they're single?
Yeah, absolutely. And how I came to this was kind of cultivating, you know, what do I want? And then forming them into questions to potential people who I was going to be dating. And so what I do with clients who are in therapy, specifically because they're looking at maybe getting back into dating or they had a tough breakup. So we process that breakup and that relationship and that grieving process that goes on, that loss, whether it was amicable or not amicable. And so I kind of asked that question, what do you want? What worked in your last relationship? What were you missing in your last relationship? And those are where the questions come together on like how you formulate what you ask the next person that you're dating, and getting really clear about that. So yeah, that's how I kind of do it, and more of a explorative of their own experience and what they want, right? Are you looking for something casual? Then let's curate questions that meet that. Are you looking for something more committal? Are you looking for a family? Let's ask questions that are very pointed and direct on those pieces.
Yeah, so you can get the answers that you need and be more informed in your choices.
Right.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're kind of just walking around blind.
Yeah. Trying to get what you want.
And hoping that it falls into your lap. But that is scary to ask for that.
I know.
Right? Because then that has to mean that the other person is willing to answer truthfully.
Right. And you have to overcome the loss if they aren't.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's a vulnerable ask.
Yeah. That's why I just did it in the first date. I'm just like,
let's just get this over with now.
Let's get this over with. Can you handle this?
Shocked. And you want a second date. That's a good sign.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
I think it's important.
And it's scary for, it was scary for myself to do that.
Sweating buckets.
Yes. I was so nervous. Absolutely.
But also there was for me, I don't know about you with Cam, but there was some confidence there in the fact that I was going to get the answers that I wanted to. Yeah. So I was also really pleasantly surprised by the answers.
Right.
That was fun.
I didn't really know Cameron before we even went on our first date.
I know you were dating other people.
I was dating other people.
Yeah.
And we had met on Bumble. Thanks, Bumble. And
Bumble.
Thanks, Bumble.
Bumble actually works, apparently.
And I think, to go back to, I had not talked to Cameron very much. I had asked him one question on Bumble, got his response. We messaged maybe a little bit back and forth, and then we went on a date. I wasn't asking the hard-hitting questions via the app.
No, not through direct message.
And I didn't know really anything else about him.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Kids? No kids?
What's your relationship like with your parents? Yeah.
Are you close to your mom? Okay, we can go on our date.
Okay, yeah. So
don't do that, is what you're saying.
I wouldn't recommend it.
Probably not going to catch a lot of dates that way.
No, and I mean, truly, even in person, that's kind of even scarier for the other, because they're kind of taken off guard.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like a little more than a vulnerable share. It's like an overshare.
Yeah.
You're like, whoa, your profile is a little bit too informative.
Yep.
Maybe, have a little mystery there.
Yeah, absolutely.
A little intrigue where I have to actually find some stuff out about you. Because I show interest and I show that I care and I'm willing to put the time and the effort in to find out more about you.
Right.
That's also, it's good balance.
Yeah.
You gotta have good balance.
And even as we talked about, asking questions for me came super natural and was really authentic to me. So that's what I led with, because I wanted to show myself in a first date so that the other person could decide whether or not that was for them.
Yeah.
And that may not be. everyone's pursuit. And so when I'm talking to them about the questions, you do it however you feel best and most authentic doing that. I guess my only caveat to that would be to be cautious about the timing of how much you yes, because you could get caught up and then not have the questions that you're looking for. And I think
it's very easy to get caught up.
Oh yeah, hello, hormones are especially around.
If you're lonely.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Or to settle for things that you maybe wouldn't settle for just based upon the fact that you don't want to be alone. I see a lot of people do that.
Yep. And they're really scared to ask these questions. And even being confident in the sense that that's what they want. And even then, the things that I said I wanted, like not sharing ice cream, I shifted a bit on. Right? And compromised a little bit. But there is wiggle room.
But I bet he still doesn't eat all of your ice cream.
No, he does not.
And he knows better.
Hard boundary.
And then that's okay. And he still loves you regardless of the fact that you have a favorite ice cream, and it's totally cool.
Yeah, we just get separate treats, and that really helps us.
I understand about that.
Yep.
That makes sense. Okay, so what type of counseling theory or therapy do you use with your clients, and why?
Yeah. So the therapy term, I would say, is like more eclectic. So I really pull from a different and variety of therapeutic modalities and theories. But my main one is psychodynamic. And how I often explain it to people is I really like to dig deep and get into kind of like the early experiences where the aspects that you're talking about today were formed, right? So if we're talking about anxiety or depression, where did that originate? Because it didn't just come out of nowhere. And I want to get to the root of it. Sure, we could talk about how to alleviate your anxiety today, but it's still going to continue to show up. And as it should, because it is essential, just as a side note. But there are aspects like depression where, sure, we could talk about, affirmations and, here, get out into the sun, get yourself a vitamin D. But what is it where that originated? What's the evidence that supports that belief? So I work work a lot with psychodynamic.
Is that depth psychology?
I would say, yeah, in depth. I like to give the visual to patients of going down to your deep, dark, scary basement. And it's the place you do not want to go into.
Putting on the flashlight, taking out, pulling out the refrigerator, looking at the dust and the cobwebs.
Yeah.
Getting to the bottom of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm the same way. I don't want people to carry stuff they don't have to carry anymore.
No.
That isn't serving them. And if someone were to just have told me some of the things that I was unable to see yet, it would have sped up the delivery process of me understanding it or having more compassion or loving or making better choices, more informed choices for myself.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's my main lens that I work from.
Okay.
But I like to use modalities like interventions such as like EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprocessing. For my patients, I also use a Gestalt therapy, which is really experiential. What are you feeling right now in this moment type of thing? Really bringing yourself to the present in that present experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I do some Gestalt therapy too. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know that we had this overlap, so that's really cool. I mean, I know you have that interest as a person.
Right.
And in talking to you, we've also had very deep conversations, but this is very informative. Okay, so how do you approach the work that you do?
It's interesting. As soon as you said that, very boundary led. I think I have this mindset when it comes to work that I'm showing up as a therapist, and that is my job. I think I really view it as, okay, you're coming here and coming in for assistance and wanting to be seen, heard, and how can I do that? And that's really with keeping my boundaries of like, okay, this is when I show up. This is when you show up. This is what I'm willing to share. This is what I'm not willing to share. And having that constant awareness of the power dynamic that's involved, I think is just super crucial. And that's generally how I approach it from that initial sense. But afterwards, it's about connection. It's about obtaining enough safety within that therapeutic relationship that we can go to the deep, dark, scary basement. And if
establishing trust.
And I think really only a person can, an individual can only show up to therapy. And if that therapist is not authentic and true to themselves, what are they connecting to? So I always really want to approach it with being myself. And being authentic and, saying the things that I would normally say, like here in session, right? I really, that's super important to me, is to show up authentically
and
for people. And vulnerably. Absolutely.
But you have, you also have very good boundaries around what you share with people.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
So that it can be a neutral space and it's more about them.
Well, right. Yeah.
They're coming to you.
As soon as we're starting asking questions about me, I'm wondering why we're asking questions about me. What purpose is it for?
A little
is
distraction.
It just
Deflection.
Are there places where you're concerned? That's really what I want to get to. It's not about this like frivolous stuff that like, I like plants or my favorite color is green, right? What is it that you're actually seeking safety with sharing some things with me? Because that's really what we're getting at. It's not just what my favorite color is. So how are you determining if I'm a safe person to discuss this with?
Right. So how do you establish trust and safety with your clients?
Yeah, I think initially I really, I like it to be very collaborative. I am not the expert in their experience. They are. And I just want to kind of be their co-captain or guide through that. And offer my 2 cents, because that's really just what it is, my 2 cents on how I'm seeing the situation, and to really, not to necessarily devalue what I'm saying, but to offer that I'm not the expert. I don't know if that's true to your experience, but that's just through the lens that I'm seeing it.
Yeah.
And having that vulnerability and humbleness to say, yeah, I don't know if I'm right about that. Let's see. How does that feel to you? Does that resonate? If it doesn't, no worries.
Yeah. Try it. See if it works.
Yeah. I think that being humble in the therapeutic relationship has been very big for me in connecting with people, because I'm not going to get it right every time.
And you don't have it all figured out.
No.
And you're still figuring it out for yourself.
Yeah. And I will be until the day I die, probably. Yeah.
I can attest.
So it's just being that vulnerable piece of saying, yeah, I don't know everything. Yeah, I went to school and I may not also be the right person for you. Connection-wise, chemistry-wise, and that's okay. Having that and owning that, I think, has been very beneficial, I would say. At least on my end. I can sometimes speak to what clients have maybe said to me, but on my end.
I think they're very lucky to come to you.
I would hope so. I hope they feel that way. Yeah.
Okay, so... which is kind of, you already answered. I said, how much of yourself do you bring to your counseling?
Yeah, I think it's a delicate dance to bring in. I think that there are aspects of myself that you can't really hide. Right? I was just thinking about this, when I recently got engaged and now I have this engagement ring on. Okay. How are people going to
talk about that?
How are we going to talk about that?
And what are my boundaries around that?
What are my boundaries? And I have another coworker who is pregnant. So how do you talk about that? Right? Because there are aspects of ourselves that we are also human. We can't hide.
On the external.
Yeah. And to not be, I don't know, hindering to their experience as an individual in this relationship, to say, okay, what do I feel comfortable saying? I also talked to my partner about that. Are you okay with me saying that I'm in a relationship with you, or sometimes speaking to some of the experience that we've had and sharing some of those, but asking for permission. I always love to ask for permission. Hey, how do you feel if I offer some self-disclosure when talking about this, about my experience with that? Because I don't want to make it about me, and it isn't about me. But I also wanted to share that people aren't alone in that experience, and it is something to navigate and to work through. It is possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then also being sensitive to how that impacts other people in their experience. For instance, if they're single and they're looking for somebody and here you are engaged, or so for each different individual that you work with, that boundary, has a little bit of flux to it depending on their experience as well.
Absolutely.
It's not like they get special privileges or anything, but you have to be attentive to each person in a different way.
Oh, yeah.
And how that shows up.
And talking about that, being available to talk about that, I think is the hard thing. I'm going to hide this. Like, I'm not going to tell anybody about it. But if it comes up, right? Hey, how's that feeling for you?
Yeah.
What's that like in this experience right now to hear that
from me? Yeah.
I'm engaged, or I do this in my off time. What's that like for you? And, really shifting it on their experience, because that's what's most important in that moment. Yeah.
You're good. Okay, let's see. What are your strengths and limitations in the work that you do with your clients?
I think one of my strengths that I like to think that I have is that I am very compassionate and very curious about their experience, and wanting to just share space for all experiences to be had, and really not being judgmental about it. I think that that's a pretty big strong suit of mine, is just accepting of like, yep, that's where you're at, and that's okay. Let's just work with what we've got. And I would say some limitations are just lack of experience, right? I've just had my 1-year anniversary with my company, and just that lack of experience of seeing so many different other people's stories and how they've handled it, or what doesn't work when I'm offering homework or, an intervention. I think just kind of pivoting from maybe my favorite interventions or my favorite things to do with clients, pivoting. And so it's a limitation, but it's also like a growing point for me, where I'm excited to be in that space, because then I'm learning and growing. And improving.
I would imagine that you're going to continue to learn and grow and improve. As you get better at what it is that you can offer people. As well as their experience of you and your education, right? Because you're going to consistently, knowing you, consistently be educating yourself on new processes or new theories or new
interventions.
Yep,
absolutely.
Yeah. And as your career evolves more into the sex therapy role, right, how that evolves too should be really interesting. And then when I start to see couples and seeing both of them in the same room, instead of just talking about from that one individual, right? Doing group work. Right?
Doing group work. Yep.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. I'm excited for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so
I'm excited too.
So is it one more year?
One more year.
One more year. Okay, so you're halfway through.
Halfway through. I'm really close to obtaining all of my hours, which is great. And then I just got to wait that little timer mark of 3 years.
So you have to wait irregardless of how many hours you have.
That is my understanding.
Okay, so thank you for that information. So
that
you
is my
can't speed
understanding.
through the process.
No. To a certain degree, right? I think that it used to be 2 years, and now I think it's 3 years with a reduction. It used to be 2,000 hours. Now it's 2,400 hours. Sorry. Now it's 1,900 hours.
But 3 years.
But 3 years. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So they're giving you more space in case you work full time.
Yep. Yeah. And one of those years is, I forgot that one of these years is in your internship when you are actually seeing clients. And then there's 2 years outside of graduate school that you're then seeing in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So how do you feel about your clients?
Ooh, I really just enjoy them. I think it's, again, I can't express enough.
Are people entertaining like your reality shows?
No, it's so different.
Is it?
It's so different.
Because you know them personally.
Because I know them personally.
And you're rooting for them individually.
And we're a team.
Yeah.
Right? So
I really
want to be there with them as much as I can in that process and supportive. And so it feels a lot different than it does on like reality TV where I can just be like an observer, but where I'm in session with somebody, I'm a participant.
You're engaged.
I have to show up.
Yeah. You're down on the basketball court with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's always exciting for me to see kind of like what gets brought in, what doesn't get brought in, what we do talk about, what we don't talk about that time. And I really enjoy it. Like I can't really say enough about that. Each experience and each session that I do is so fruitful in the fact that I get to share that moment with them. This moment that they don't show
anyone else.
Truly, really very limited people, if at all, anybody.
Yeah. In most cases, anyone else. I think sometimes we can be, depending on who we are, more vulnerable with our therapist than we are even in our relationships because we actually feel safe and it's a non-judgmental, it should be a non-judgmental environment. Yeah.
So I really enjoy
and
the
it's maybe
experience.
where even you get to practice things that you aren't very good in other relationships because it gets modeled to you, right? Better communication skills, whatever it might be that you're working on.
Yeah. And I think in that experience when I'm in session with clients, I'm also, because we're collaborative and because there's this connection of us working together, I then get to learn about myself through that process and other people's experiences and how that shows up in my other patients is really, it is just so informative. And
I learn as much as, I'm sharing. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so it's just such a beautiful relationship because as much as the patient thinks like, oh, I'm learning so much from you, like, no, you're truly also giving a gift.
It's that talking mirror again.
Yeah.
Because have you found that a lot of the people that are drawn to you and the work that you do tend to mirror some things that maybe you have either worked on or are still working on?
It's actually funny. There will be some things I'm like, oh, yeah.
I remember this.
I'm sharing this with you. Yeah. I'm not really going to get into that, but I understand. Yes. Sometimes I'm like caught off guard. I'm like, oh my God.
I can relate to that. I can relate to your experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's an interesting experience as a therapist to be, sharing that same experience that someone's bringing in that they're struggling with and just being in such camaraderie with them, but really wanting to make sure that this is about them and not about that. And so it's like, sometimes you share it, sometimes you don't based on the scenario, but it's truly a gift that I think oftentimes some individuals who are in therapy don't really recognize the value that they bring in their own lives and also in this specific relationship, that it is so valuable. Yeah. It's not just like voyeurism, right? It is truly collaborative.
It is. It's a deep partnership.
Yep.
Yeah. Especially depending on where you are in your life.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the circumstances that bring you into therapy.
And that's why boundaries are so important on both sides.
They really are. Boundaries, life-changing. How do you hold unconditional positive regard or focus on positive aspects for your clients?
Yeah. And I think that kind of went back to some of the compassion and acceptance I have for individuals. So how I kind of hold that is, I guess, my both personal and professional belief is that really what's happening with us in our day-to-day is based off a survival skill that we learned. And we're all, again, like we were saying, we're doing our best, trying to survive here. And that's how I view it. It's not, sometimes always this malicious or evil intent. It's really just, I'm just trying to make it.
Sometimes it is.
And sometimes it is. And sometimes it is.
The person.
But that's how I really like to hold unconditional positive regard is you're just really working to survive. And this skill that you're utilizing is no longer working. So let's navigate that. Or do you want to continue to hold on to it? And if so, let's talk about why you need to feel, or you feel you need to hold on to this. Yeah.
Have you ever had a client that you've had to refer out just based upon some ethical situations in the relationship?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I spoke about this, about it being a pretty chemistry-like fit. I often have like said to certain patients about it being kind of like wine tasting, that you have reds and whites and rosés, but what's your favorite and what works best with the palate that you have in your own experiences? They all may work, but what one works the best for your current scenario and season of life? So there have been absolutely times where I've met a patient and I maybe felt some of my own stuff happening within me. They were talking about things that were feeling pretty raw for me personally that hindered my ability to provide them appropriate care and unbiased care, in which then the best option was to refer out. And that's really where I get to a point where I refer is if something that's happening for me is really hindering our care and I can't be as unconditional, I can't be as compassionate. That's where I want to stop, because you as the patient deserve better and deserve more than that. And not that is anything wrong on my part or their part. It just happened.
And just recognizing limitations.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which is interesting because I would say in school, my experience was you take everything and you work through it like a workhorse. You just power through, you shut your stuff in the deep, dark, scary basement, which I don't subscribe to. And you don't look at it and you just push through and you work through yourself. And I agree to that to a certain extent. There are some things where it hinders patient care, and that's what's important.
Especially if that's really what you're all about.
Yeah. And I think that there is hindrance here because there are limited clinicians who have openings. Mm-hmm. So that's always on the back of my mind too, is I know that I'm referring you out. I don't want to abandon you, but also this isn't the best for you.
Right.
This could be potentially harmful for you.
Right.
And that's the least that we want, right? Especially ethically.
Right.
So that's where it comes in, is really having that awareness of, ooh, I feel something very strong here. I'm having a strong reaction to what you're saying, processing what that is and wondering, can I get past that? Or is this something I need to refer out? And at this time, go do my personal work and work through that. And then maybe get back to that and address it later. Mm-hmm.
Good. That's a good response. I was going to say, yeah, especially if they make poor decisions. Mm-hmm. Yeah. How do you stay unbiased?
Yeah. I think it's because I'm like, well, this is your life. You are going to do whatever you want to do. And I'll support you. I may say my 2 cents about why I don't think that may be in your best interest for your goals. But
does this align with where you're trying to go in life?
Absolutely.
Maybe gently nudge you. Yeah.
And I think it's important to meet people where they're at, because I believe that there's a reason why they aren't doing X, Y, Z, or they're continuing to make. And let's talk about that then. That's where you're at. Let's meet you where you're at and not talk about the things that we want to do 5 years from now. Let's talk about what's happening
right now.
That's hindering you, that roadblock that you're coming into that you want to hop over and not address.
Or bury yourself in it.
Or bury yourself in it. Yeah. So I think that there are limitations, and like I would imagine maybe myself being like, all right, so we've been down this road a couple of times. Can we talk about what's happening here, or how do we want to approach this? Because you've brought it up multiple times. What's going on, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe do we need to change our goals? Maybe this is something that you want to continue doing. Okay, let's own that then. Mm-hmm. So I think that there are times where I'm like, okay, come on. What are we doing here? And I kind of show up exactly like that. I'm like, all right, what are we doing here? Is my understanding that we want X, Y, Z, and that's how I'm approaching this. So maybe I need to change my approach. And so that's a discussion to be had.
Yeah. Thank you for that. How often do you seek peer consultation?
So and within my own company, they offer a lot of consultation groups, which I think are so useful. I think, I sometimes struggle with the peer consultation groups via telehealth because there is a boundary there. There's a barrier. And I think it can be sometimes difficult to share in those spaces in the sense of like making space for everyone who may want to share. Like, I guess I'm a person, this is kind of showing my analytical part of like each person has like a time in which they want to share and not taking up too much space. And so I do seek it, especially when I'm running into things of like those, wow, I'm having like a strong reaction to that. What is happening? Or I'm not sure where to approach this. If I've kind of done all of my tools in my tool bag, okay, what am I missing here, right? Because we can get into spaces where I'm so entrenched in my client's story that I'm kind of missing some big macro pieces and I'm only looking at the micro. So I seek individual supervision every week, group supervision every 2 weeks, and then there's like a bunch of consultation groups within that. And whenever it comes up, generally someone's always available. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
You have great support.
Yeah. Tons of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is that
both personally and professionally?
Is that what you? Yes.
Yeah.
Is that what you were looking for when you were looking for a place? Yeah.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I was going to do private practice initially, but as a relational person, I was like, I would like more relationships, especially starting out, because again, that humble, I don't know everything. And I don't want to be caught in a dangerous situation for either myself or my patient where I'm stuck.
Yeah.
And something irreversible could potentially happen. Right. Mm-hmm. And so
you could get on the naughty list.
I could get on the naughty list. I do not ever want to be on the naughty list. No. So it was really, really important for me to seek that. Absolutely.
Makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. It's very logical and analytical of you. Okay. So have you ever faced an ethical dilemma with a client and why, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah. I think the one that readily comes up to mind is this one where, I had seen a patient and something had come up strongly for myself and based on what they were talking about or how they presented. And I was like, I don't know what to do because I don't want to abandon them and I want to show up for them. And can I push through this? Can I push through this and just endure and show up? And I really struggled with that because I think it is such a difficult thing to go into therapy initially and just to even get on someone's, schedule that I just have so much respect for that. So I struggled with, can I push through this, or is it in the best interest of my patient to just say, I think it would be best if we no longer see each other and I provide a referral because something is happening in regards to my individual and personal self that is hindering your care and getting in the way. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the ethical, gifts or another thing, or people wanting to connect with you even online. Online of like, hey, can we be friends? I'm like, no, I actually know. Or people will say, well, when can we be friends? Like if I were to end therapy with you, when could we be friends? And I'm like, well, if we both decided to engage, it would be 7 years after our last appointment. Like
7 years.
7 years. Yeah.
I'll see you in 7 years.
See you in 7 years.
See if you still think of me then.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know we've shared some deep stuff, but I imagine that you're going to meet other people in your life.
Right.
Yeah.
So those are some. And then I think too, another ethical dilemma that comes to mind is I like to tell people when I first meet them that the whole purpose of this is to work me out of a job. We're supposed to get to a point where we're
not friends.
Doing whatever you need to do.
I know you love me and everything, but we are not friends. And if you are here longer than a year or so, unless you have
and nothing else to really work on.
Yeah, then we're friends now.
Yeah.
Now we're friends.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm just, collecting some money from you and we're having a great time.
Yeah.
Which is cool, but not cool.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
That's not why people should come to me.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yep. So those are some of the ethical dilemmas that I think I run into.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. I run into some of those as well myself. Okay. How do you value the work that you do?
I think I value it by offering it just so much respect. And I value it in the way that it informs my own life, in the way that I approach not taking it for granted. These little special moments that I get to share, even though they're very hard and people oftentimes do not like to come to see me, really having an understanding for that and being like, yep, that's what it is. And so I think I just value that because it is just such hard work, as I even know personally from going into my own therapy, how valuable it is for others to have that space and how I want to offer that for people. Yeah.
You're so cute. How do you incorporate self-care and avoid compassion fatigue?
Ooh, such a good question. I think I have a little bit of a distaste for the word self-care. Because
too touchy-feely?
It's too maybe commercialized.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can work with this.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not necessarily like self-care people envision like bath bombs and like massages and, and like
pedicures.
Yeah.
That's not self-care.
No.
I mean, it is. But it's not.
Absolutely. And I think how I take care of myself is making sure that how am I eating the nutrients that I need to do my job? How am I moving my body because I sit in a chair for hours
8 hours.
End, right?
Yeah.
How do I create boundaries where I am maybe fatigued from talking to people all day or really attentively listening to people? How do I say no to maybe external events, even though that may not
as a social person,
it may not be
puts you in a bind.
What I want, but I think it's what I need. Right? Because I want bath bombs.
How very adult of you. It's so grown up.
So I think, and also by doing my own therapy, I think is super, super important to make sure that I'm addressing any blind spots I have, especially with supervision is another way that I take care of myself in doing
having
this
somebody
work.
to advocate for your best interests as well.
Yeah. And it's interesting with compassion fatigue. I think I mostly struggle with that when we kind of are in this in motivational interviewing, there's like these stages of decision making, and in the pre-contemplative stage, when we're in there for quite a while, I begin to start to feel that compassion fatigue because I am kind of like a workhorse when I show up into therapy because I show up. And I think that is an approach to the type of therapy that I like to show up in the room that is different. And some people show up as more supportive and laid back and listening. And I like to be active participant in that. So when I can get into a place where I'm not being active or we're not working on anything together, I think that's where some of my compassion fatigue can be because these are big emotions we're having. And, even for myself and other people who hold other people's emotions, what do we do with them? Right? How do we move through these? Because I also can feel those with them. And I try to really be in place with that. So when we get into a place of pre-contemplation, I think is where I can become fatigued in compassion. But I just work with that with trying to understand that that's what they need right now. And how can I, in my active workhorse position, take rest with them in this space and let them decide when they're ready to make moves on whatever they may need. I think it can be a lot when you're hearing people's really significant traumas. And I think I combat that with thinking about how they've endured and how they still continue to show up every day and be like, yes, and. It's one of my other coined terms. Yes, and. Not but.
You're so
and.
wise.
Thank you.
Okay. How do you lead yourself?
Yeah. I think as a relational person, it can be difficult to self-lead myself oftentimes because I think of myself in relation to others. And so, with my fiance Cameron, I often think, what's our future like? What do I need to do in order to make sure that we are both on that same page and we are both getting the things off of our to-do list to get there? And with that, I also have to say, what do I want? And getting very clear on where I'm trying to even lead myself. and asking myself, do I still love the work I do as a therapist? Mm-hmm. Okay, let's check in about that. If I don't, how else am I going to guide myself into something that does feel where I'm passionate and meets my needs? So I think I lead myself by thinking about the goals that I have, right? Very analytical and logical. What goals do I have that motivate me and propel me and ignite emotion for me that says, that's what I want. I want to feel that. I want to be there. I want to join that.
How can I make that happen?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So thinking about the goals that I have personally and that I have as a partner, to Cameron, what are those and how can I envision myself getting there? And that I think is what leads me and propels me. And how can I get better? I think that I'm always in a state of like improving. Right?
Me too.
I'm like, all right, what else can I learn?
And it's not about perfection. It's about just making small incremental change over time.
Just data collection. Mm-hmm. How can I learn more about this world and the people in it?
How can I learn more about myself and how I relate to the people that are in it?
Yep.
Or how can I relate to myself?
Yeah. And how do things work, right? Yeah. I'm always so curious about how things like really function. Mm-hmm. As a kid, I would always like put things together and then take them apart. My mom always thought I was going to be a mechanic. But I do think of therapy very in a systems, mechanical type of way.
Interesting.
What this behavior, what purpose is it? What is it serving? How does it work? What placed it there? What are the other components and gears that make it work? Yeah, very mechanical in my approach. It's kind of like a puzzle. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I keep losing my spot.
No.
Who are the people who uplift you?
Ooh. Yeah. I would say number one, obviously Cameron, who is, by my side all the time. He does it in a very direct approach. It's not very sweet often. It's very direct and to the point, which I love because
he doesn't beat around the bush.
He does not beat around the bush.
He just tells you
and
what
I think
you need to hear.
I have enough emotion for the both of us. I can identify all of those, that he really helps offer some clarity and supports me in that. Kind of helps me get out of my own way. And then, for my emotional side and kind of stroking that comfort of that is my mom. Always really being super supportive and thoughtful and attentive and really asking me what would feel best or how can she help. And then obviously, my friends, both near and far, are so helpful in supporting and guiding me and being a sounding board to hear where I'm at, what sticks out to them, what maybe I had said that maybe was like, ooh, why did you say it like that? And obviously my therapist, shout out to you. Yeah.
She's doing a great job.
She's doing a great job.
We love her. She's doing a great job. Okay. What old ideas of yourself are you outgrowing and what is this making space for?
Yeah. I think we touched on this earlier. It's just this idea of being too much. And saying, yeah, I am too much to others.
Yeah.
And I accept that. That's fine.
To some people. I may be too much.
Yeah.
Because
okay.
I'm highlighting how they are too little.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Or whatever experiences I may be acting up for them. That's fine. Whatever that is, it doesn't have any reflection of my value or my worth.
And I don't need to take it personal.
No, I still struggle with that specifically.
So you're human.
I'm human. Okay. I still take things personal, but I think that that's a big, major one of old belief of what I want and who I am is not too much. Mm-hmm. And it is obtainable and that can be loved. And I can be imperfect and still be loved and accepted by others. That's okay. Mm-hmm. And that, it's a daily practice. I think another belief that I recently held, but since doing the work is like, oh, I gotta be the best. I gotta be the best therapist, right? It's like, well, define the best.
Mean?
Yeah, what does that even mean? Let's therapize myself here, Hannah. What does that even mean? I think that
used to be that way with success, right? And then you have to get to a point where you're like, okay, so what is the definition of success? Because that can mean multiple things, right?
For multiple people.
And I used to catch myself saying, I don't feel like I'm a success, right?
Yep.
And then it's like, well, Andrea, you've accomplished all of these things that you're not looking at.
Yeah. And I think I shared that. I share that with you because, at 30, I'm like just now getting engaged and all of my friends are like married, have kids and have a house. And I'm like, ooh, I'm not successful, right? Like, ooh, I haven't quite made it yet. But really, everyone's on their own journey. Everyone. And there is no...
But you did other things.
Yeah.
You've been working on your career and you're actually doing a career that you love and are passionate about. And not maybe none of those people. None of those people have a fulfilling career.
Yeah.
No, I mean, maybe some of those people didn't take the time to do that. Instead, they put all of that energy into finding a relationship, marrying that person, building that house, building those kids, right? Not building, but you.
Yeah.
Building that life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think it's really about timing. Was I even ready for that at those
you
times?
Weren't.
No,
you're only doing I tell people all the time, like, if you could have done this any faster, you would have. Yeah.
Definitely have been times that forcefully tried, right?
Yeah. It's happening at the right time that you were absolutely ready for it. And everyone's story is different.
Oh, yeah.
We all have milestones that we like to compare and contrast about, but ultimately, like, everyone's on their own path.
Yeah. And there's like this saying that I used to really try to recite all the time is like, comparison is the thief of joy, right? Like, we're comparing apples to oranges, really, even like in our lives here. Apples to oranges. Like, I just, there is no comparison.
You'll never have lived my experience.
Right.
And there's no possible way I could ever understand yours either.
No.
Yeah, your perception of reality is completely different.
Yep.
Yeah.
And two truths can exist at the same time.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that those are some of the old beliefs that I am like working to adopt. And there's still even more that I probably haven't even uncovered yet, right?
You're pretty good.
Motherhood is probably coming around the corner and you're like, oh, wow. What is that like?
See that? Yeah, no, I can. Yeah,
like the work is really never done.
No, it's not. I mean, I've learned more about myself in this divorce than I feel like not necessarily the divorce, but maybe the fact that the exit of that person, right, gives you time to finally take a look at yourself again, especially as you meet other people. You might start dating. What does that look like for you? And then how long has it been since you've done that process of self-evaluation?
Yeah.
Because maybe there were times in the relationship where you were doing self-evaluation depending on what you were going through in the relationship or personally. But like when someone leaves your life, that really kind of takes, it leaves a void.
Well, and there's no more influence of them.
Yeah.
Right? There's that big disconnection.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm all for personal discovery and continuing to evolve.
Twinsies.
Okay, let's see. What do you hope to embody more in the next year?
I think I hope to embody, I think that we can all further develop our compassion for others and compassion for myself. I think I really want to embody that. I think in the next year, I'd like to embody that being a student in my own, I've kind of, graduated from school. I've got my test. And now it's like, now I have space. I have space now and mental reserve to be like, what else do I want to learn?
You're not just reading textbooks and doing research.
And what interests me.
Yeah.
So I think I want to just keep being the embodiment of constant learning about myself, about others, about life, about the work that I do, about how people approach things and solve things and run into hiccups. Yeah.
It's informative of the work that you do, for sure.
Yeah.
Last question. How do you feel we can incorporate more love for ourselves and for the world around us?
Well, I think it kind of begins by getting to know yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Really opening up that basement.
And then doing the work on yourself, right?
Doing the work.
Having, I mean, at least this is my goal, but having my wounding be as least impactful on other people, right?
Yep.
Really, really taking responsibility for and directly owning my impact on other people.
Yeah.
And being consciously aware of that as much as possible.
And I was thinking that, I often hear, people both in my personal life and professional, like, oh man, but people have had it worse than I did. Right. People have had it worse. And while I that is a fact, and people have had it better. So how do we show love to all of these experiences and everyone's, because there's no competition. There is love to be shared at every stage of everyone's life. And once we can start to love those parts of us that we have kept in the basement, that I would imagine we can start to love others who have also not looked at their basement, or maybe encourage them to look at their basement like, hey, I've come out the other side.
And it's okay.
I went to that scary place.
But I survived it, and it's totally doable, and you can too if you choose to. And I'll even be your friend or your companion or your partner through it.
Yeah. And, the saying of like, you can only love someone as much as you love yourself. But it's also, you can only see somebody so much as you've seen yourself. If you haven't gone to that deep, dark, scary basement and that other person has, it's going to be really hard for you to connect and love that person, because there is not that understanding of, I don't know what that's like. I don't know what it's like to go into that basement and see my own yucky stuff that I don't really want to see or look at. And then how much more love you could offer the world by saying, oh yeah, I see you. I know what that's like. I have such compassion for you because I've had some experience with that, or I can share that with you, right? Because we all just want to be connected. We all just want to be loved and love each other and have connection. And I think we can do that by starting with looking at where we are. How can we love ourselves in this space, even though we're not where we want to be? Loving that as it is, because then you can love someone when they're not in that space of being like, yeah, I haven't quite achieved this or that yet. You can still offer them love and say, oh yeah, I understand. I love myself right here, and I want to offer love to you, that it's okay. You'll get there. Yeah. It's not a race. It is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Right. And again, I'll say it again, because I don't think a lot of people hear enough. There is no arrival. No arrival.
Never get there.
So don't wait to love yourself until you get to that arrival.
Yeah.
Love yourself now. And then you would be amazed what all of the other things that does in your life for you and the other people around you.
It really helps things fall into place.
Yeah. Because again, you can only love someone, you can only see someone, you can only understand, you can only offer so much compassion for someone else if you offer yourself some of that same compassion. Right? Yeah. It's an interchange, a very relational answer I have for you.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
But very insightful, very powerful too. And I think that anybody listening is going to appreciate all of the nuggets that you gave us. I mean, you have some really insightful ways of sharing how to relate to the world. You've learned some really, really beautiful things through your own life, and then also through the people that you work with. And like I said earlier, I think it would be, a pleasure to land in your therapeutic office and be able to have the opportunity to work with you. Yeah. I mean, I know you more on a personal level, but, I really appreciate, thank you so much for everything that you shared. And thank you so much for being willing to do this with me.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
You're welcome.
And sharing this, with people who may need that, right? You're offering that outlet and that source for people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have some valuable share. So I'm really, I think that, this has probably been more informative than some of my other ones, right? So I think that people just all got a little bit of a dose of therapy, right?
Very cool. Yeah. Get some therapy.
So thank you for that generosity.
Yeah, of course. It was my pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Until next time. And
thank
you again. Mm-hmm.